You can waste years trying to figure leadership out on your own, years falling behind, years not knowing why you aren't getting the results you expect. Nowadays, there's more leadership content than ever, and most firefighters and officers are drowning in it and still not making progress. That's why we created the Fireground Company membership. This membership isn't for everyone. It's for firefighters and officers who refuse to be average. Once you join, you gain access to the Insider Podcast, Leadership Q&A, where we answer the questions you submit to us, discussion feeds, private resources, exclusive discounts, and more. Right now, we have a founding member discount for the first 50 members to join. Visit firegroundcompany.com before this offer is gone.
Today's episode of the Fireground Company podcast, we're discussing peer-to-peer influence and how you can be a leader regardless of rank.
The Fireground Company podcast.
All right, so hit go on that bad boy and we'll get started.
Yeah.
All right. So...
Is that on?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just wanna make sure.
I think so.
Oh, dude, that was awesome.
That's...
So Jacko Go, feel free to sponsor me, Jacko.
Jacko Go number 2.
Yeah, just Jacko Goes. Yeah, just give me free Jacko Goes. I'll be good.
So you were telling me in our little coffee session before this episode that you had some. You said you actually used a term. You said influence, peer-to-peer influence, and you said you had some stuff to talk about. I guess the point being is that we talk a lot about influence of a leader over their subordinates or their crew. But there's something else to be said for peer-to-peer influence, or I guess leadership in a sense, or I don't know. Let's put it this way. You mentioned that and it piqued my interest and I want to hear about it. So can you tell me about it?
Yeah, it was the whole thing. People talk about leadership. What is leadership? It's influence. You could say a whole bunch of other things, but that its essence is that. So you have peer-to-peer, because well, how do you do that? Like if I'm a firefighter and they're a firefighter, well, how do I lead? People talk about that all the time. Like lead at your level, and you don't have to be the officer. So that's kind of a different way, because you don't have any of the official rank or anything like that. So leading in that way is a little different, firefighter to firefighter. But there's also, officer to officer, two officers, whether you could have kind of an official structure where it's like you're a captain in the firehouse, they're a, lieutenant or whatever your rank structure is. That's a little more official. But you could also have two officers at different firehouses, they're peers, and like, how do you lead at that level? So it's two interesting conversations I've thought about. Again, I don't necessarily have every answer, every angle of it, locked in, but I think it's worth talking about how do you do that, and maybe starting with the firefighter to firefighter, how that works, how you can do that, I think is important, and then maybe moving to the officer to officer one.
All right, so tell me about it.
Well, I think peer-to-peer in any situation where no one really has I would say it's upper hand, but no one has what am I looking for? Like you're equal in essence, your responsibilities, and you can't really tell this person to do this. You're at the same level. So firefighter to firefighter. Well, how do you do that? There's kind of the unwritten structure, right? We've talked about sometimes where you have, seniority versus, junior. And that all makes everything more complicated, right? Because there's things, if you have more time, you can kind of, you're in a more unofficial leadership role at that same rank. Or you may be the more junior person, but you're trying to influence the person that has more seniority. So there's different ways of going about it, right? And then you get your feelings involved and all that other stuff. So you got to navigate that carefully. And I mean, well, how do you go about that? I think it starts with one of the things is an example that you set, right? So if you want to lead at your level within your peers, other firefighters, you have to have a, show the example, right? That you are trying to maybe, I don't say push, but move people towards, right? So if you're like, I want to make this firehouse more dialed in, I want to make everyone, the guys here, more dialed in and better, but you can't run around and say, we need to get better. It just doesn't work that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
At that level, for sure. I don't even think it necessarily works that way at the next level up, the officer down, but firefighter, he has to start with an example. So if you want to raise the bar in your firehouse, then set an example. So do everything you're supposed to do. Do the checkouts, keep the tools clean, be proactive about. You can do training too. I think a lot of it's hit or miss. Like some places, the firefighters can be more proactive with small little training evolutions in the firehouse. Sometimes not so much, but for sure, be proactive with that. You don't have to wait for the officer to officially do it. You can do a whole bunch of little training things all the time, like just going over a saw or pulling the ladders off when, checking them or just throwing them or talking about, hey, what tools you bring. So you can do all these mini drills, and it can get more complicated when you're dealing with, say you have someone that has a little more time than you, and you want to raise the bar, but they're not as interested in it.
That's a tough
So
one.
how do you get them involved? And I think it's, goes back to your ego, and you have to kind of push that down a little and look at what the result that you're trying to get. So you want to make the crew better. You want to make this person better and everything work more efficiently, right? So how do you do that? I think you say along the lines of like, hey, can we go over this? I just want to run through this. And not necessarily, you're not asking them to show you, but you're like, hey, can you run through this with me, in the sense of like, I want to do this drill. I need another set of hands. Can we go through this?
Mm-hmm.
And then you could ask them questions like, well, what do you think? I was doing it this way. See what they say, and then you can offer your opinion, and then that kind of gets them thinking about it and involved. So if they're not the kind of person where maybe they have more seniority than you and they're not proactive about training, asking them to come out there and help with whatever skill you're working on and ask them questions can get them involved, and I think also can raise that bar in a way that's not stand up, whatever. I guess what I'm trying to think of what word I'm looking for, like pushes them away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a junior guy and you're telling the senior guy he doesn't know what he's doing, man, it's not going to work, right?
No.
They're going to shut down. So
if anything, I think you need to, what's that term you use? You do a little mental jujitsu.
Yeah.
And appeal to their ego. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, like, everybody has an ego, and appeal to it. So I think a good move, if you want to get them motivated, is to say, let's say, here's an example. Like, really, me and this guy were having a conversation, and he says that you're supposed to do this skill this way. And I say this way. As senior man, what's your opinion?
Yeah.
And then, you know what I mean? And it's like a little trick. Yeah. But all of a sudden they say, "Oh, I'm the senior man. Oh, well, let me give you my opinion on that." And and that little trick might be enough to snap them out, or even something like if you're a junior guy trying to do something around the firehouse or something, you can appeal to them and say like, "Hey, I've been thinking about implementing this around the firehouse because I've been noticing, this hasn't been getting cleaned or something like that. I know you've been here for longer than I have. So like, how would you handle that? Or what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so those little turns of phrase can be useful. And honestly, for a junior guy, I know that it takes a little bit of suppressing your own ego to do that, because I think for a guy that is junior and is dealing with a senior person that is undermotivated, they can be like, well, what, why should I appeal to this guy's ego? He's the problem, not me, and okay, sure, go ahead with that line of thinking, but it's not going to be productive, sometimes. And this is where it's almost like I see how interesting this topic is now, because it's almost like we're now applying some of the stuff you've talked about for officers, except down at the firefighter level, and junior to senior, senior to junior, and we've seen some pretty drastic examples of these different relationships. I've seen it go both ways. I've seen a senior guy that is got a bunch of young people that he's trying to motivate. I've seen a crew of all senior people, and there's somebody trying to motivate a group of people that have been around for a while. And I've seen it exactly what we're talking about now, and I've seen this a few times actually, where you do have a junior person that's like bought in and wants to build a culture around their crew and everything, but they're not officially or unofficially the leader of that group.
And you don't want to throw that in their face. Like you're all fired up, because you have to be careful with that, because what'll happen is if you're all fired up and you're making it seem like, man, these guys can't keep up with me.
Yeah.
It's not going to be good, because then now you're not going to have any influence if you're the junior guy and these guys have more time and you're trying to move things in the right direction. So you gotta, again, I always say, pay attention to your audience, pay attention to what's going on, and sometimes not be as vocal or out there, and be a little more subtle with some of this stuff. Read the audience, read how that comes back. Just be careful with putting it in their face so much where it does, I don't know.
Yeah. And one other thing I was thinking, no, you're right. Like that, right. That again, there's plenty of like cultural references in movies and stuff where the young buck comes in and, they're, whatever, that whole storyline. So you want to avoid that too. The young guy comes in, and again, when I say junior guy, I mean a junior guy with maybe 4 or 5 years. I don't mean a new guy.
It really depends on your fire department.
It does,
because it's all over the place depending on how much time people
That's
have.
true.
But
That's true.
Just someone below you in maybe seniority, really.
Yeah. But I was thinking, one of the concepts, I forget when you talked about it, but you talked about finding your person, your one person, right? As an officer.
Yeah.
As an officer, you find your one person that's bought into what you're trying to do, and you use them to, to get something going, to get a little, well, you can do the same thing. And I think it works. And as you were talking, I was like, you almost have to. So let's say you're a junior guy and you're trying to get the whole crew motivated. If you find one other person that's with you, then you now have a dynamic. So you can do things like people can see you drilling together, or you can get this person. And you know what? The other thing is, find a person that you can be straight up with. Like we're talking about mental gymnastics and mental jujitsu and using tricks and ego and stuff. You know what I mean? And it's all for good. It's influence, not manipulation. But find somebody that you can be straight up with and say, look, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make this place better. And be honest and say, here's how I'm going to go about it. So you can be completely on the level. And that works to junior to junior. I think it also works senior to junior. So if you're a senior guy and you're trying to build something in your firehouse, find one guy that is maybe a little junior to you, or, I always talk about.
The easiest is like when you have a new rookie come in. That's the easiest, because you have a reset. You know what I mean? So if things are kind of off, you have someone new, and it's like, okay, well, there's a lot of stuff you have to train on. There's a lot of stuff you have to teach them.
Yes.
You have to explain how to clean stuff. So if right now you're like, things aren't the way I want, I'm not really getting traction from trying to get other people bought in. Boom, you have a new rookie. Now you can start from zero.
Yes.
And great, jump on that, man, and make that work for you. Figure out how you're going to do that.
Yeah. And it is. And it's also, not only is it starting from zero, but it's also a good checkpoint to see where you're at with the other guys. If they jump in, and do things the way you want things done. And I think that's, I keep thinking about that's slowly, we've talked before about if you don't have a culture in your firehouse, how do you build one? And I think over time, that's how you slowly do it, is you get a couple of guys bought in, and then when the rookie comes and then now you've got 3 or 4 instead of 1 or 2 that are kind of bought into what you're doing. You have a kind of common language, maybe a couple of traditions or things that you do, things that you can say. I don't want to say this specifically because I don't want to out myself in case anybody is listening, but I started a thing that I want the rookie to do. And I acted like we've been doing this for years, and it's not. I started it maybe like 2 rookies ago, and it was partly like a test to see, it's something to see if they do it, but it's also like a pride thing. And I had this thought: we need a couple of things around the firehouse that show pride for the firehouse, and that you get to work at this firehouse, and you should be proud of that. And so I started this, what I call a tradition, but we really doing it for like
traditions.
But
start somewhere.
Yes, but I told the other guys, I told the junior guys, I said, if the rookie asks about this, you say we've been doing it for years.
That's funny.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
And they're like, all right. And I was like, yeah. So if you see him doing it, you say, okay. Like you're joining a lineage of things of something that's been done for years and years. And I was like, it's a little white lie. Okay. But it's for good. It's for the purpose of starting something.
We should talk about this on the Insider podcast behind, the secret paywall.
Yeah. I can tell, I'll tell you exactly what it is. How about that? I'll tell you what it is.
That's funny,
but it works. So the point of this, is that it did a couple of things. One, it gave the rookie the sense that there's something here, there's something going on. These guys, you talked about like a communal thing. These guys are all participating in something together, and they're all owning it. But it also did something else, because surprisingly, the guys on the crew liked it a lot too, because they're like, oh yeah, cool, all right, yeah, I'm in on that, and now they own it. And now, so the next rookie, I might not even have to tell them about this made up tradition that I created. The guys might do it, you know what I mean? They might say, hey, did they tell you about beep beep beep, and then one day if we all stay together, the rookie that I originally told about it might be telling the next rookie, that happened this time. So anyways, that got a little off track, but you see what I'm saying about if getting buy-in from one other person, and then seeing that, and then it can kind of expand over time.
Yeah. Well, you brought up culture, and I think when you really get to me, the culture, the essence of what it is it's habits, things you repeat over and over again. That is the culture. That's how that's how you get there, and you get the culture you want. It's these habits that you're doing.
Yes.
And then that's how culture deteriorates. It's no longer a habit. You kind of do it every once in a while, and then it just slowly, it's gone. So, I mean, that's the thing, is building up those habits, and then that creates the culture that you want to have. And you have to start from zero sometimes. And it's just, all right, this is the culture I want to have. And it's interesting. Every fire department has different things, but that's how you start it. You just start it with one person or group of people, and then you build from there, and then, it goes from there. Maybe it's just the culture in your firehouse, and maybe that firehouse culture then spreads to the rest of the fire department or nearby firehouses, however that works. But yeah, it's interesting. The peer-to-peer leadership, peer-to-peer influence. I mean, yeah, another good way is just thinking about that. How do you do that without, getting these egos, slamming into each other? And sometimes it's kind of, it's not you're asking for permission, but a little direction where you're leading, and you're saying, let's say you got to clean the gym, right? And you haven't been, maybe your shift hasn't been the greatest about it, but you want to get back to that, right? So what do you do as a junior guy? How much influence do you have on that? You don't have a ton, but what you can do is you can go to the more senior guys, or someone even at your level that's maybe junior, and just say, hey, what time do you want to clean the gym today? And now you put that out there. You're not telling them to clean it. You're just asking what time, because that's a responsibility that you have. So that's a way. And I just think people don't use that very much. And it's so disappointing to me. I wish guys would understand that's what you can do, is you don't have to tell them to go, we're going to go clean it now, because that's going to turn a lot of people off. Just the way it is. But, say, hey, what time do you want to clean the gym now? That's, what time do you want to wash the rig? What time do you want to, that's one of, I think, the most powerful ways of leading at your peer level, is asking them what time, when do they want to do something, or, hey, how do you want to do that? Because you're not telling them. Really, it's, I guess I'm thinking about this. It's set the example. You got to do what you're supposed to do, and then ask them what time they want to do certain things. And those two things right there, man, leading at your level, huge. They sound so simple, but they're huge when you really think about it, how big of an influence those two things can be. It's, I don't know.
Yeah. Have you ever, I was just thinking of, have you ever seen a situation where there was conflicting? So here, I was thinking as you were talking about how I think a sort of a power, not power, power, but a leadership structure naturally develops in any organization that's doing the kind of mission that we're doing. There's always, whether you make it official or not, there's always going to be a sort of pecking order or a structure that develops either officially or it just kind of naturally happens. I think we're built as tribal beings to function in that way. And I think it's satisfying all the way up and down, whether you're a leader or somebody in the rank and file wants to have a good leader. Have you ever seen a situation where two unofficial leaders developed and couldn't figure out which one was, you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Like, so obviously there's officers, right? But we keep talking about how there's like one guy that wants to lead a whole crew. Have you ever seen it where there's two guys who think that they're the unofficial leader and they have friction because of that?
Yeah. I think that happens.
How do you work that out?
How do you work that out?
Yeah.
If you're at the same level as those two guys and you're trying to straighten that out?
If you're an officer and you see two, unofficial leaders butting heads and the crew is now confused as to what the real structure is there. How do you think you could, how could you sort that out between those two guys if you were one of the rank and file, so to speak? And then how would you handle that as an officer?
As an officer, I'd probably break it down as far as, once I realized that was happening, I probably would divide up some responsibilities of like, well, these two guys are vying. Hey, Tommy, you're going to be in charge of, cleanups, whatever, cleaning up the firehouse in this area. Hey, Mikey, you're going to be, can you lead the tools? I need help with someone kind of taking that on and leading the guys on keeping the tools clean, or whatever it may be, or, drills or something. Like, hey man, I want you to, come up with, some drills for forcible entry. I want you, Mikey, to, come up with some drills for, hose line deployment. I would say, give them responsibility so they know what they're responsible for, and also keep them busy with that. I think if you keep them busy with things that are productive, not busy work, but like legitimately things that are helpful to the firehouse, or maybe give them like projects or little things like that to lead, then that, directs that attention. It's like, that's your world, man. You're the leader of that little thing, you're the leader of that thing over there. And I think that to me would be, step one. Maybe I'd start doing that. It could come to the point where you have to sit them down and talk about it. Or you're like, hey fellas, we're butting heads here. We all have the same goals. What's going on? I know you guys are both good unofficial leaders. I know you're not promoted officers, but you guys are doing a good job, but we can't have this friction in the firehouse. This is not helpful to all the other guys, and they're seeing this, and it's becoming an issue. So maybe you just sit down and you have to explain that if it gets to that level, but maybe you can redirect some of that energy that's creating that friction between those two dudes to projects and other things, and give them certain worlds of responsibility that don't collide with each
Yeah.
other.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I actually remember specifically this happening, and it happened because of a transfer. There was a shift that had an unofficial leader already on it, and then there was some transfers made.
Yeah.
And another guy came in with more seniority.
Yeah.
And now, so you had an unofficial leader in place on that shift already, but now we have another guy that's senior and was also a go-getter. And so now I can see two potential results of that. And in this case, it might not work out this cleanly, but in this case, it was, a multi house. So you had a truck and an engine, and they were each on one rig. And so what could have happened is it could have become a very healthy competition, right? The truck does this, the engine does this, and we compete, but we're actually making everything better. What actually happened, unfortunately, and this is another potential, is they just completely split, and it became a house divided.
It's not good. And
it was the engine did the engine thing. And I've heard stories of this happening, and it's kind of funny in some cases. I know somebody was telling me about one firehouse that had different doors for the truck and the engine to go through and stuff like
different
that.
Tables. They would eat at different tables.
Yes.
That's the extreme.
That's extreme.
That.
Right. And I don't know, maybe it's funny in those houses, but in this situation that I'm talking about, it was not healthy. It was not good. They'd stopped drilling together. They almost stopped talking to each other.
Yeah, it's terrible. And I mean, that could happen at the officer level, or that could happen, like you said, to senior personalities right below at the firefighter level. I mean, you could have also the offset where I know we were kind of talking about something different, where you have one officer on this rig and they have, people, the firefighters they're fine. They're in their little world. And then this guy is a senior firefighter creating friction with that company, but their officer is really not getting that in check. I mean, that's a little different than what we're talking about topic wise. But I think if you're the best thing is if they recognize it. I mean, that's the thing. If one of the two people recognize it, you got to kind of sacrifice for the greater good in that sense. You got to, push that ego down a little. If one of those two peer-to-peer, officer to officer or firefighter to firefighter, if one of them can recognize it, as much as you may want to, that guy, man, I want to crush him or I can't stand him, you have to recognize the greater good. And I have to get myself in check and be a little humble here. And people will recognize that, man. They're not going to disrespect you because of that. I'm not saying let the person walk all over you, but what I'm saying is, be a little humble about what's going on, figure out the lay of the land and, navigate that. And it doesn't have to all be your idea and, pound your chest and everything else. There's some other ways you can lead there with that person,
How do you, at an officer level, I mean, it's weird because in our situation, there's actual rank divide there. But let's say that you had, because I think in our department, there's a lot of lieutenants that are dealing with other lieutenants. I've seen that situation. We've both seen that situation a couple of times. What would your advice be to peer-to-peer? You're trying to get something done at that, because we've talked a lot about sort of at the firefighter level, but as a lieutenant, I mean, I'm sure it's some of the same stuff, but lieutenant to lieutenant, captain to captain, you want something done at the firehouse, and you have to get this other officer on board. Is there a different approach to that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, I always look at them as equals. I don't really necessarily start with the premise that I outrank them, whether it's in the firehouse and I'm a captain and they're a lieutenant or something like that. I still look at them as like equal, really. Just like a firehouse down the street. If they're a lieutenant, I'm a captain. I look at them as equals. I always start from that. I don't really think about it as like me outranking them. I don't know, because I've never really leveraged that. I don't leverage that much. I only leverage that if it gets to a point where something gets out of control, like a safety issue where someone's just blatantly disregarding, not putting elevators in phase, 1 service or phase, like stuff that really will get people hurt. And then maybe you have to leverage that rank. But I don't know, I always look at them as peers. And you're asking like at the firehouse, how to get them. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a little easier if you obviously you have a different rank or have more time. So like you have two lieutenants working at the same firehouse, and one lieutenant has more time than the other lieutenant. That's kind of it's a little easier to maybe deal with if you're in the one with more time trying to influence the other one, but they may be turned off by you, not so I don't know. I think it's very similar where you're kind of staying humble and you're working with them, asking them questions about how they like doing stuff, or, offering, not so much like telling them, but, asking, man. I think people like being asked, ask with a suggestion, I guess is the way I do it, or
What does that mean?
so I'll say, ask with a suggestion is, hey, do you want to go over these ladder skills at 2:00 today? I use that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm asking with a suggestion. I'm kind of telling you what I want to do, but I'm asking you if that's okay. And then it's kind of they don't feel like I'm ramming it down their throat. I'm giving them an out. Most of the time, people are probably going to say yes, right?
They're not going to.
They're usually going to say yes, right? So. Yeah, so I'm asking with a suggestion, I think is a great way to do that. If, there's nothing really like toxic going on, you start with that, incorporate them in different things, ask their thoughts, bring maybe, issues you have with them, get their take on it. You may already have the answer, man. You may already like, I'm going to probably do it this way. Say, hey man, can you come in here? I just want to talk to you and get your perspective on this, just so I, cause I'm kind of walking through this in my head. What do you think? I use that all the time. Sometimes it is to check myself and make sure I'm not off base. Like there's something I didn't see, because that's always very possible. I always kind of in my mind think there's always something I didn't see. So that's my perspective, but also it's getting them in on the decision where now it's a decision that we both are a part of. So we own it more, right? So if I can get that guy, maybe, we're dealing with a firefighter that has issues in the firehouse. You bring him in. I have an idea of how I want to deal with stuff. So I'm going to ask them, like, see what their thoughts are, offer suggestions. I usually have some in my head about how I want to deal with it before I bring them in. And then, get them to agree on that. Now it's their decision also. So they're invested in the decision. It's not just me telling them how we're going to handle this. I may drive, and some people may say some manipulation. I don't think it is, man. It's for the good of trying to do something good. I'm not trying to gain advantage on anyone. I'm trying to make the situation better. And I'm open to suggestions, but I'm driving it in a direction where I'm trying to get ownership from this other officer. So it is our decision. So now they're invested and they want to see it succeed a little, because we don't like our decisions to fail, right? Or our ideas or plans. So, I mean, that's what I do a lot. I mean, for someone that's not at the firehouse, bring them in on drills. I mean, it's hard sometimes for us right now. We're very busy with a lot of stuff, just the way our, stuff is set up in our fire department with getting out and drilling with other companies, unfortunately. But that's a way to, build that with another officer and see what their perspectives are. And again, I mean, give them outs, man. I think it's when you tell people this is how we're going to do it, they don't like that. But, hey, I want your perspective. This is what I've been working through, how we've been trying to deal with, hey, getting a good position to get a ladder to that roof, or how we're dealing with these doors and these forcible entry issues, or these positioning apparatus issues, or these hose line deployments. What do you think? And they may have a take on it, and you can kind of go back and forth, and that can be a good discussion because maybe there's something you didn't consider. But again, it's, you're working with them, you're building that relationship, and you're leading them maybe, because maybe they have problems with that, and you want to expose them to something that you think can be helpful. And also, I think I've done on this, man, you share your failings. Like, don't just make people think you magically figured this out, man. I didn't magically figure out like some of the stuff we do with hose lines and stairwells. That was from screwing it up, man. Yeah. So, and I think
it's also, I didn't figure this out because I'm better than you.
Yes, exactly. I'm probably as bad as you, maybe worse. I'm just a little further down the road because I started a little before you. Maybe I screwed this up before you even screwed this up. And then I was honest with myself, or someone came to me and they told me, Yeah, because that's a lot of things get passed down. We always joke about, right? Where sayings come from in the firehouse. Like, it's a funny saying. You think it comes from that guy, and then you talk to that guy,
we were just talking about that.
and then he's like, "Oh, I got that from this guy," and it's like, oh, okay. I mean, things just get passed down. They either get forgotten or lost, and then kind of rediscovered. But usually, even if you think you came up with something, man, you look around, someone else is doing it. It's just or maybe that seed was planted a long time ago. So I think, the
There's an old country song, and I don't remember the lyrics exactly.
Are you gonna sing it?
Nope.
Oh man, come on.
Nope, I'm not.
I think you have a good voice.
Thanks. My grandfather sings it actually, but it's the refrain is like, "I got a couple years on you, baby," about being older. So, but one of the lines in there is that I've had a few more chances to fail, and that like struck me. I don't know why I made this connection between firefighting and this old country song, but that always stuck with me, because actually the lyrics to the song are actually pretty good. But I've had a few more chances to fail, and that's kind of what seniority is, or more years or more experiences. I've had more chances to mess it up, and to learn from those. So when you say stuff like this, you're not saying I'm better than you. You stink. It's that, hey, I've had a few more opportunities to mess this up already, and I took some lessons away from that.
Yeah, and peer to peer, man, that's a great way. I mean, I was talking to some other officer, firefighter, trying to become an officer and all that, and I was telling them, I was like, most of the stuff is like stuff I screwed up or I accidentally got right, and then after the fact, I was like, well, why did that work? And it's like, it worked probably because of this, and then I tried to see if I could repeat it, and it's like, oh, so that does work, and I just refined it or whatever. But a lot of this stuff was just accidental, or I read it from someone else, or someone told me, and I gave it a shot and kind of made it my own in my own little way. Not like I'm role playing, but this is how I would say it, and figured it out. It wasn't, I mean, it's just, I'm not sitting in a chair and it's just coming to me magically. I mean, I either stumbled on it, or someone told me about it, or I refined it. I mean, that's just how it is, man. I mean, I don't know.
I'll tell you what, I thought about it, and maybe I will sing that song. I'll record it. I'll learn it on guitar, but I'm going to put it behind the paywall.
I love all this stuff that's like embarrassing or whatever.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's going to be on the Insider Podcast.
That's what we'll do. I'll
a collection of nonsense.
One of these days I'll sing you a tune
collection
on the Insider Podcast. All right. Well, that's a good day's work right there, I think, on peer-to-peer. I think, again, I kind of went in some different directions, but I think it's all relevant. And I think we had some good conversations about not just the kind of the nature of influence. And when I say influence, it's it's a good thing, influencing somebody to do things that we truly think are better for the job, or the firehouse, or the department, or the people involved, whether that's a better experience at work, whether that's safety, doing things right to, make people better at the job so that they don't do dumb things that get them killed, across the board, or just sharing information. Sometimes we get different opportunities to go to different fires and learn different things. Yeah. So we share our experience, and there's a tactful way to do that, and different, situations present. Obviously the best way is when it's just casual and we're hanging out around the kitchen table and sharing war stories and talking about that. But we talked about there's different situations you find yourself in, either as an official leader or an unofficial leader, where you have to, try to use some influence, and there's some different ways to do that, and looking at it from peer to peer as opposed to promoted officer to rank and file is an interesting conversation. I think we got some stuff out of it, both for the firefighter level and for the officer level.
Yeah. I mean, this is I realized more recently in the last probably back half of my career now, there's just this there's a lot of stuff out there about this, understanding this and how I could do better. as an officer with the leadership position that I have, or and how to provide this information. I mean, it's like I wish I started on this earlier, but I mean, if you're listening, you're early on in your career, I mean, jump on this kind of stuff. And I mean, it shouldn't be everything you do. I mean, the tactics and all that strategy and the skills, that's a high priority. But once you get some of that down, give yourself a little time to like look at this stuff, because becomes very powerful as you progress through your fire department career. So, I guess shameless plug here about it,
Yeah, do the shameless plug. Come on.
Membership and all that. We got the Insider Podcast. Again, we got, there's some background costs and all this. This helps us a lot. We really appreciate the people that have signed up already for it. We got the founding member discount. The first 50 people, you get $8 a month, and it stays that way forever once we raise the price and all that. And I really want to make that valuable to you. And the question and answer thing right now is the heart of it. We got a bunch of other stuff, but if this, conversations like this, you have something specific you want to ask, that's the forum where we can answer it for you with more context of your situation and stuff, and help you. And the point is like making people better and helping them with these kind of things. And whether it's a little tactical or like this leadership stuff, we talk about all that. So check that out on the website, firegroundcompany.com, and see if you want to be a part of it.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Cool. Thanks for stopping by. I can't talk. Check us out at firegroundcompany.com. You'll find links to all our social media accounts and our YouTube channel, and you'll stay up to date on everything we're working on. We also have a store on our website where you can support us as we grow this community, plus working on some great courses to help you strengthen your leadership in the fire department and support its traditions and culture. Last but not least, subscribe to the podcast, give us a rating, leave a comment, spread the word, get this out to the firefighters who are hungry to make the job even better.
The Fireground Company Podcast.